All right, we're going to shoot a short video here on show you some ways you can improve your experience playing DBA. So in front of me, you've got I got a terrain mat, just felt that we normally use to play. You can get this at a craft store. It makes it a little bit better than just a standard green thing. It's got some different colors in there, so it lays out nicely when you put some troops on it. Well, with the travel aspect of DBA and going to different tournaments, it's pretty convenient to use felt for representing some of the terrain features. Like in this case, the woods represented by the green felt. Real easy to use it, and honestly, I've been pretty guilty myself of being kind of lazy in the past and just using pieces of felt representing terrain because it's inexpensive, it's easy to carry around, and ultimately, if it ends up walking off one of the shows, you're not too worried about it. It's pretty inexpensive to make. But unfortunately, when you put some figures next to it, it looks kind of lame. So I'm going to show some things here you can use pretty inexpensively to kind of up your game and make it look a little better. So instead of doing the woods, one of the things that I worked on before was try to improve the look of them, is have some woods that looks like this. So now what is this? Is this a commercially available product? No, this is actually something you can make yourself. It's pretty easy to do. As a matter of fact, these are actually collapsible. So when you're moving troops through them, this is what I like to call the Mark I woods. This is my first attempt of doing it. Made a couple of them. And you can actually remove these here, and the troops can be inside, or you can fight amongst if there's fighting on, and then when the troops move out, you can put the woods right back on for the look. And of course the perimeter of the woods is what's important, not just this. So you never use it like that. Just you need to have this is just a covering for it. So I did those, and this is really inexpensive. I honestly don't remember where I got the trees from. They finally came from somewhere else. They're not really trees. They're just kind of building material, and this is some woodland scenics. Thick clumps that I've had for a long time, and this is just your containers, your shipping containers from your net, like from the post office. You get stuff in the mail and put it to good use. You can see it's just draw an outline, glue a couple pieces together, cut this out so it's double thickness here, and lay it on there. Now, different people use different kind of materials for the actual gravel look on it. One of the ones I use for all my basing, I didn't start off using this. I used to, when I first started doing DBA armies, I used a mixture of white glue and just like sand, and that worked pretty well, but it didn't really give a lot of differentiation. It was kind of like mushy, I guess is the best way to describe it. So found some products that I'm really happy with at the local Michael's. This is one of them called Natural Sand by Liquitex, and it's already pre-mixed. It's a lot of material. You can do a lot with just one container of this. And this is kind of the finer detail one. So I'll show you some of this stuff in the that I use for the desert. Some of the desert terrain that I uses this one. The standard thickness is this one right here. It's called resin sand, and it's literally a paste you just apply on, and it's like pre-built sand. It's pre-mixed sand already in there, and then you just apply it, let it dry, and then just paint over it. Let it dry for 6-8 hours overnight, something like that. Come back in the morning, and it dries opaque but pretty much clear. Been really happy with this product. I've used it quite a long time. Until recently, I can't find it at the local Michael's store. So actually the last time I ran out of it, I had to order it. But it runs about $10 for one of these, and you can do quite a bit with it. I think this is the second one I bought, and I just started going in it, and I've got probably 12 armies that I've done in some terrain, so it's pretty inexpensive. But it's made by Liquitex, and it's pre-made. This is the resin sand, and the finer one is the natural sand. Only gone through about a third of the original container of this, so I use the resin sand more, but I'll show you some of this when we come up to those products. So here's the woods. Been really happy with them. They look really good with the troops beside them or around them. Kind of improves the look of the game. Really inexpensive to make. Another thing that's really inexpensive to make is hills. Now, again, this is here's our Mark I hill. Okay, so this is just pink styrofoam, the high density kind, not the one that's the little round pellets. And you just coated with this resin sand on top of it, glued some extra little pebbles, and then dry brushed and arranged it, put the flocking on there. I don't know if you noticed the difference here, but there's not a whole lot of difference between the flocking color and the actual felt mat. And that's actually on purpose, just so it kind of blends into the terrain. I tend to like that look on that. And what I mean by Mark I is the next time I'll make some of these, they're actually going to be a little shorter because it's kind of difficult sometimes getting these guys to stay on them. They work okay. The 15 millimeter deep stands, these are the 20s, but the 15 millimeter deep stands tend to fall over a lot more. But they work. I've got some lower hills that work okay, but this is really the lower hills work a little better. This is my first time out. You know, this is a bad going hill, and then this is the one I use for the gentle. Here's another bad going hill as well. Same thing, just pink styrofoam. I've got a styrofoam cutter that I use for it. But really, you can just chip away. It can kind of be rough when you put the final coat on there to smooth it all out, and they look pretty good. They really look pretty good, and they match the bases nicely. So really happy with that. Again, something pretty inexpensive to do. You don't have to buy something commercially bought that's out there pre-made. You can, but you know, this was my first attempt way back when. I think these are 8 years or old or something like that. So another thing you can do is for some of the new terrain types in 3.0 is one of the terrain types is scrub. And I made these little scrubby things here. Again, it even says International Priority Mail, something I got from probably the UK. UK is the land of toys. Seems like all the miniatures that I want to get my hands on are not domestic. They're from across the pond. So put the container to good use. This is just some commercially bought pre-made tufts. And again, I gave it the same treatment. And I use this for scrub. Pretty happy with it. For some reason, this one likes to work back. But and basically what I do is with these is I cut the shape that I want, spray paint the thing lightly with black spray paint, because that's usually what I use a base for all my figures, and terrain is black. And then just build up the colors. Well, put the resin sand on it, and then build up the colors from there, add the tufts, and boom, you're good to go. And some dull coat to seal it in afterwards. So pretty inexpensive to make these things. I bought one pack of tufts, and I think these two things I went through about half of it. So pretty inexpensive for the materials for those items as well. One of my well, let's go ahead and just jump to the we talked about using the natural sand. This is some desert terrain. Obviously we don't play on this because the green doesn't really match really well. This is a lot finer. I don't know if you can see this, but this is the grit on the standard one compared to the same grit on the natural one. You can see it's a lot less coarse. This is one I made for dunes. I think it works really well. Again, same material, inexpensive. Hey, look, I even put on here when I made it. April 2012. I was diligent about that, and then I've just fallen behind and didn't stick to my own method. But this is a dunes that I use for that, and pretty happy with that one. This is actually a set that I made for my Ptolemaic army. Here's another dunes I made, same material, and they are a littoral army, so I made a desert swamp for them as well. So this is their marsh, which when you lay this on the the matte, which is actually really close to this color, it stands out nicely. You've got a marsh that's kind of just a dried mud area. Again, same material. This one I think is, this one I use the resin sand instead of the natural sand for it. Real happy with the results. Really cheap to make. Real handy. Okay, and let's see what we got. Some other terrain that we did here. We made some Rockies here. These are actually in the color scheme for my Rajputs, which are a dry army. So these is put some gravel on there. Same thing, same material. Real handy to use. Inexpensive. Makes your game look a lot better. Okay, matches the bases of the army. So I'll put that aside. And one of my favorite things to do is go to a pet store. You can always find some interesting things here to use. And even though I don't have any pets, but it's always good to go in there and see what it is that you can use for camps. Or in the case of BUAs, we wanted to build some BUAs and try it out with that. So we came across, or I ran into this little guy right here. Now, originally this was an aquarium ornament, and it had all kinds of holes in different places, and I didn't mind it being destroyed. The problem is if it's destroyed, it wouldn't look like this looked like when it was destroyed, which is basically hollow, so you could actually like see through it. So what I actually had to do was turn it upside down. Of course, it's on a base now. Turn it upside down, tape over the holes. There'd be something to put the filler up against, and fill in these spots here where there was openings. And then what I did is I took those areas and made it look like there was moss growing there. So the places where you've got the green moss on the actual castle had holes at one point. Well, actually, this area up here like had holes, and then you didn't want the moss just growing from nowhere, so I had it come up from the base section. And that's it. Pretty much just dry brushing and you're good to go. I think this was like $7, and it works really well for a BUA. We use this one as a fort, but it's nice looking for medieval European armies, kind of non-denominational medieval European armies. So really happy with that. Pretty easy to make. In one weekend, boom, you're done. Dry brush it, good to go. Another one I found had a little different look. Was this one right here? Same issue. It was had holes in it. Again, it's an aquarium ornament. I looked at this and looked at it, and I'm like, well, what could that be? What does it look like? Does it look like Southeast Asia? So I eventually went ahead and did the same color pattern as I did for my Rajputs, and it is a fort for the Rajput army is what I use it as. And again, same thing. I think it's $7. Fill in some holes here, and you're good to go. Now, the interesting thing about this one is this one actually has an opening. A fort has only one way in, one way out. This one has a nice doorway that already came that way, so I didn't really have to do with it much. So pretty much good to go. Put it on the stand, put some resin sand around it, dry brush it, fade the colors up so it feels like it fits in the terrain here. As you got some of the dusting up here from the some of the colors are here in the base, or dusted up as if it was swirling. Actually came with some pre-made plants on there. Wasn't too happy with that, but it was either paint them up like it's got plants or spent a lot of work filing that down. So I decided that was probably the best option, is just go ahead and go with it. Also, this one in particular, I think it had the very top sections actually were hollow all the way through. So I had to get creative and put some tape in there and patch that up, so it didn't look like it was a smokestack or something like that. It's basically what it was looking like. So really happy with that. Always fun to find things and repurpose them for something different. Next item I've got is for a village. I had this thing probably from my Micro Armor days, and I'd say the early 90s. I was doing some micro armor in North Africa, and I picked up this pre-made village that was it's basically one piece. It's a resin piece, and it had all the buildings already on there, and decided to paint it up. It was like the perfect size for a village. Painted up real nicely. I don't remember who makes it. May have been JR Miniatures. Not sure. I've had it a long time, and just got around to finishing it up this year. So there she is. Got a little mosque type building. Some other ones. Can use it for lots of periods. Just started working on my next army, which are the Ottomans, and I'm sure this will see some action on the sidelines there for sure. Now these are pretty light. This one's actually kind of heavy because it is resin. So what I decided to put is I actually put a magnet on here. So this will ride in one of my metal trays that I carry my troops in to keep it from sliding around and damaging itself. That's the problem with some of these terrains is if they go through a lot of movement, and also if they weigh a lot, they can hurt themselves when they crash into something else. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to put all that effort into it and have your handiwork damaged. So got a little magnet on there, and good to go. So my last Historicon, I actually came across some buildings that I wanted to do something with. And, I had one village. I had the Middle Eastern one, but for the most part, most of our combats are usually in Europe or European. So I had this little Saxon village, these little buildings here that I picked up. It was actually a set of the buildings all together. It was a little village it could work for other things. I believe it was marketed as a Saxon village. And I'll have to put down in the comments what the name of the manufacturer is, because the name escapes me right now who it is. But they make Timecast. Timecast is the manufacturer who makes these. They're out of the UK, and they make some really nice stuff. I mean, these guys painted up really nicely with the wood timbers and everything. And it's just a little Saxon village. I'm sure it will be used for all kinds of different things. And instead of just leaving it loose like that, I actually made a base where the buildings actually fit on. And again, the same material, okay, really handy. And put some crops in there, put the pathways in between the buildings. And actually they all have, I think I'm going to do this correctly. They each have a place for them to all go. Again, got a big one is over here, and a little guy is over here. I think at some point I'm probably going to put little magnets on the bottom of them, but this is how they all fit in there, and it looks really nice. And the buildings, you want them to come off because as you're moving through this terrain, if you need to advance and you've got a building in the way, you need to be able to just do that. And then when you move out of the way, you can of course put the building back. Makes it useful, and then it looks nice on the tabletop. I think this one was featured in one of the battles between the Romans and the Gauls that we did a couple of months ago. So it's a nice looking terrain piece, real easy to make. You got to buy the buildings; they're like $10, something like that. And of course, this base is just elbow grease, really, to just get that thing done. Really happy with that. And probably the item of all these that we've used the most, probably because we've had it the longest, are I don't usually buy pre-painted things. I shouldn't say I don't usually buy. I never buy pre-painted things except on two occasions. These items and one other item that I bought a long time ago was just a little Matchbox car that I used for one of my other games. But there's a gentleman at the Historicon. Every year except one, he sells these pre-made fields. And they're just like gift cards. Fredericksburg Vacations. So he repurposes these. I think he uses spackling compound and draws a pattern. I don't touch these. He's made them, and they honestly look pretty darn good. I mean, I guess I could put some of this other same coloring on the edge to kind of get it to blend. But, honestly, I'm going to leave them alone. They really work pretty well, and they were really well priced. And like I said, he's just using recycled materials. Literally like gift card for some shoes. Just repurposes them. They look really good. They serve the purpose. I got a whole bunch of them. I got little ones, different crops, different colors. They're only a couple bucks a piece. We've used the heck out of them. Really no reason to improve that. Oh, we got something hiding back here in the corner. Oh, we did a swamp. This is actually one of my later ones. This is a temperate swamp, so a swamp for not for the desert. And again, flocked it up, made it a little bit murky, put some, actually did some semi-gloss in there so it looks like there's some water. Not sure if you can catch that or not, but the intent is for the semi-gloss, for the water, like it's sitting water there for the marshy terrain. But this is a pre-made hill I got a long time ago from recycled tires. It works pretty good. I don't really use it. It's kind of boring. Use it as a general hill. That's the problem when you buy these commercial things. You kind of stuck with like whatever you have. So like this is actually not a bad looking hill. It's kind of uniform colored, but there's no real crest line. So you either have to draw one in, or it's flat top, which really it's, technically there needs to be a ridge line on the hill. But when you make your own hills, there's no doubt about where the ridge line is on this. And that's, you can do those type of things when you're making your own terrain. And it's really pretty easy to do. And, once you do one, you may not get exactly what you want. You can just keep trying them. I do all types of mixtures of paints. I use Vallejo almost exclusively for my miniatures painting, except for the black and the white. I use just craft paint for that because my painting method uses a lot of both, especially the black. And I'd be going through Vallejo left and right. But for these guys, I just use the regular apple barrel type paints. Work fine for them because you do need to dry brush them, and it does consume quite a bit of paint. But other than that, they come out really good. You can make your own stuff. It's really pretty easy to do once you get started. There's all kinds of things you can do. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I got a mess on my table here now, but kind of gives you an idea of what you can do, different types. There's still a whole bunch that I haven't made yet, so I'm looking forward to making a gully or two and try to tackle roads. Roads is going to be kind of creative because right now we're using like 1/2 inch thick felt, 1/2 inch wide felt for the roads. So we're going to try to do maybe experiment with some with that. Maybe put a little bit of grass on them, kind of bring them up a notch. They're kind of keeping us behind on some of the looks on the games. But hopefully you found this useful, and if you've got any comments, please leave them below. Thank you.